Just look around our world today. Relentless climate change, escalating conflicts, deep-seated poverty. It really feels like our current global systems, largely designed decades ago, are fundamentally struggling.
They really are. They're struggling to keep pace with these truly hyper-connected planetary scale challenges we're facing now.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to solve 21st century problems with, well, 20th century tools. So what if we could radically rethink this?
What if we could design something completely different?
Exactly, like a global nervous system, one that could truly sense, think, and act on a planetary scale.
Well, that's precisely the audacious vision we're diving into today, the Anima Mundi Governance, or AMG framework.
Right. Okay.
And this isn't just some, tech upgrade, it's a complete rethinking of how global governance could work. It's quite clever, actually blending ancient philosophy with really cutting-edge technology.
So ancient wisdom meets future tech.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it as creating a planetary cognitive infrastructure. The author behind this, Mr. Shahryar Ghiasi, he poses this really pivotal question for all of us.
Which is?
Can humanity collectively manage its planetary impact and foster truly sustainable coexistence through such a radical shift?
That's a huge question. And in this deep dive, you're going to discover not just the fascinating details of how such a system might actually work, but also the really profound problems it's trying to solve.
And there's some surprising data in the source material that makes this idea really compelling.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to get our heads around how this framework proposes to give our planet a kind of responsive global brain. So let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
But before we jump into the solution, the AMG thing, let's really grasp the scale of the problem. Why do we even need such a radical change?
That's the right place to start.
The source material paints a pretty stark picture of why the current global order, especially, the United Nations system, just isn't cutting it anymore.
It really does.
It highlights how the UN was designed back in a post-Westphalian era, primarily for sovereign nation-states.
Right, a world of distinct borders and national interests.
Which makes it inherently difficult, the source says, for it to address the hyper-connected and complex dynamics of the Anthropocene epoch. That's our current age, right? Where humans are the main driver of planetary change.
Precisely. And the evidence for this struggle isn't just abstract, it's frankly quite sobering.
Okay, give us some examples.
Well, look at the IPCC's 2023 projection. Even with everything we're trying to do now, it still points towards a distressing 2.8 degrees Celsius warming by 2100. That's way off target.
Way off. And conflicts.
The Uppsala Conflict Data Program reported, get this, 65 active conflicts in 2025 alone. 65.
Wow.
And then you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. The 2025 report revealed only about 15% of the targets are actually on track.
Only 15%.
Yeah, and predictions suggest over 600 million people could still be in extreme poverty. These aren't just statistics, they're symptoms of a deep systemic governance deficit.
It really feels like the system is creaking. And the sources, they break this down further, don't they, into what they call 4 structural pathologies.
That's right, 4 fundamental flaws that really plague the current system.
Okay, let's go through them. First up, fragmented data ecosystems.
Ah, the data problem.
Yeah, it turns out a huge chunk of the SDG indicators, like a third of them, actually lack reliable measurement. We just don't have the data.
Which means our understanding of global progress is incomplete, sometimes even contradictory.
It's like trying to navigate a ship with massive blind spots, right? You can't see where you're actually going.
Exactly. You can't manage what you can't measure effectively.
Okay, that's one. What's the second pathology?
Decision latency. Basically, things move too slowly.
Ah, bureaucracy.
Well, yeah. The whole multilateral decision-making process is so drawn out, the average crisis response time, around 89 days.
89 days. That's nearly 3 months.
Exactly. And in many crises, that's simply too late for interventions to be truly effective. These delays can have, catastrophic real-world consequences.
Okay, fragmented data, slow decisions. What's number 3?
Stakeholder exclusion. This one's about who gets a voice.
Right. The system is very state-centric, focused on national governments.
Too much so. It often sidelines crucial non-state actors, civil society groups, indigenous communities, local populations on the ground.
People with vital knowledge and experience.
Absolutely. Their voices, their deep knowledge, often get excluded from the formal policy discussions. This leads to what former UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali called a legitimacy crisis way back in 1996. It hasn't gotten better.
A crisis of legitimacy because people don't feel represented. That makes sense. And the final one.
Number 4 is resource misallocation. It's about the money.
Or lack thereof, or it going to the wrong places.
Both. The current financing mechanisms are often inefficient, reactive, and they perpetuate a massive funding gap. The UN DISA estimated a just staggering $4.3 trillion annual SDG financing deficit in 2025 alone.
$4.3 trillion a year.
It's a system that just struggles to get the right resources to the right places at the right time. Leads to loads of missed opportunities and wasted effort.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, and honestly, it sounds pretty daunting. Fragmented data, slow decisions, key voices excluded, money not getting where it needs to go.
It's a significant challenge.
So, with those systemic failures painting such a grim picture, you might be asking, is there any way to fundamentally shift this, to change course?
And that's where our source material offers something. Well, something truly audacious, not just small tweaks.
Right. It proposes the Anima Mundi Governance framework,
Yeah.
AMG. And what I find fascinating is how it draws inspiration from this really ancient philosophical concept, Anima Mundi, the world soul.
It's a beautiful concept, this idea that there's an intrinsic animating connection among all living beings and, well, the cosmos itself.
Like the planet is alive, in a way.
In a way, yes. And what's really interesting here is that AMG isn't just throwing new tech at the problem. It's deeply rooted in this rich intellectual history.
So where does it start, philosophically?
Well, you can trace it back to Plato's Timaeus.
Yeah.
He described the cosmos as a single living creature endowed with soul and reason, unified. That underpins seeing the global system as one interconnected thing.
Okay, so unity from Plato. What else?
Then you have the Stoic concept of logos, this idea of a rational organizing principle, a universal reason. That provides a kind of philosophical basis for evidence-based rational policymaking.
Makes sense.
Neoplatonism offers ideas about emanation, which kind of maps onto multi-level governance, how global principles can filter down and apply locally through a distributed network.
Like nested systems.
Exactly. And Hermetic traditions, they emphasize deep interconnectedness and wisdom-based leadership, which informs the ethical foresight aspects of AMG. The source actually has a great table, Table 1, laying out these connections.
So it's drawing on centuries of thought about interconnectedness and wisdom. How does that bridge to modern ideas? Because it sounds quite mystical otherwise.
Right, it does, but the framework connects it directly to more modern scientific concepts. Think of Vladimir Vernadsky's noosphere.
The thinking layer of the Earth.
Yeah, the idea that human consciousness and information create this global layer of thought. And also Teilhard de Chardin's omega point, the idea of collective consciousness evolving towards some kind of higher unified state.
Okay, still sounds pretty grand.
It is grand, but then it gets grounded in contemporary science, specifically the planetary boundaries framework.
Ah, the idea that there are hard limits, biophysical thresholds we can't cross without risking major environmental shifts.
Precisely. Those boundaries give us concrete scientific targets. AMG then tries to operationalize all these big ideas, ancient and modern, using something called distributed cognition theory.
Distributed cognition. Like, thinking isn't just in one brain, but spread across a system.
Exactly. Viewing the entire global system as a complex knowledge ecology, a learning system. And the source gives this really compelling analogy to make it clearer.
Okay, I like analogies.
Think of the quantum cores, the advanced computing, as the system's prefrontal cortex, handling the complex reasoning and foresight.
The thinking part.
Right. Then blockchain networks act like the neural synapses, securely transmitting information and building consensus.
The connections.
And the vast networks of sensors, including citizen sensors, they function like the peripheral nerves, constantly feeding real-time information back to the system, sensing the environment.
Okay, prefrontal cortex, synapses, nerves.
Yeah.
That paints a picture of a living, responsive system, a planetary nervous system.
That's the core concept. It's a holistic approach, building something that can sense, learn, decide, and act as a coherent whole.
All right, that analogy really helps. So let's unpack this planetary nervous system more. The AMG framework proposes this three-layered architecture.
Yep, 3 distinct but interconnected layers.
Each designed, you said, to directly tackle those pathologies we talked about, the data gaps, the delays, the exclusion, the misallocated resources.
Exactly. Each layer has a specific function aimed at fixing those core problems.
Okay, let's start at the top. Layer 1, the frenetic layer. Wisdom generation and anticipatory ethics.
This is maybe the most revolutionary part. The core insight here is its ambition to embed wisdom, practical, moral wisdom, phronesis, and ethics right into the heart of global policymaking.
Moving beyond just data and efficiency to actual wisdom.
Precisely. Shifting from just reacting to problems to proactively considering the moral and ethical dimensions before acting. This layer is like AMG's cortical structure, its higher brain functions, and it's anchored by something called the quantum phronesis unit, or QPU.
Quantum Phronesis Unit. Sounds impressive.
That works.
So this QPU is the wisdom engine.
In a sense, yes. Phronesis itself, that Greek term, means practical moral wisdom, the kind of grounded judgment that's often missing in big bureaucracies.
Okay, so how does this QPU actually generate wisdom or ethics? Can you give us a concrete example of how it would work?
Sure. It has three main functions. The first is anticipatory ethics modeling.
Anticipating ethical problems.
Exactly. It uses incredibly advanced machine learning running on those quantum cores to simulate potential policy outcomes across all the different SDG dimensions: poverty, health, equality, environment, everything.
So game plans, policies.
It does, but specifically looking for potential human rights risks or negative unintended consequences before a policy is even implemented.
Wow. Any real-world tests of this?
Well, the source mentions preliminary simulations by the UN Neuro Governance Initiative in 2025. They apparently showed remarkable accuracy, over 80%, in predicting civilian protection gaps in the Ukraine conflict back in 2024. They did this by analyzing complex interdependencies between socioeconomic factors, environmental stress, conflict data, things humans struggle to see all at once.
Over 80% accuracy in predicting harm. That's incredibly powerful, acting before the harm happens. What else does this frenetic layer do?
Its second function is noospheric consciousness integration. Fancy name, but a crucial idea.
Integrating consciousness, what does that mean practically?
It means formally bringing in diverse ways of knowing, diverse epistemologies, moving beyond purely Western scientific models, which tend to dominate now.
Ah, like indigenous knowledge.
Exactly. It actively integrates traditional knowledge systems. For instance, UNESCO reported in 2026 that 72 traditional knowledge systems were already contributing complementary climate models and ecological foresight into the QPU.
So it values different kinds of wisdom equally.
That's the goal. It directly addresses that historical marginalization of non-Western knowledge in global policy, making the wisdom truly global.
Okay, that's critical.
Yeah.
And the third function, you mentioned it also finds knowledge gaps.
Right. That's epistemic governance and gap analysis. Beyond just integrating existing knowledge, the QPU actively scans for what we don't know.
How does it do that?
Using advanced neural network analysis, it processes just vast amounts of literature, think hundreds of millions of scholarly articles, policy reports, you name it. It identifies critical knowledge gaps and, importantly, underrepresented perspectives, whose voices are missing.
And then it tries to fill those gaps.
Actively. This function specifically works to recruit and integrate marginalized voices and expertise, particularly from women, from communities in the global south, people historically disadvantaged. It's trying to overcome what philosophers call epistemic injustice.
Epistemic injustice.
No.
The systemic silencing or undervaluing of certain groups' knowledge.
Exactly. Making sure all relevant knowledge contributes to the wisdom.
Okay, so the frenetic layer gives us this ethically informed, inclusive foresight. That's the brain. But how does the system then act on that wisdom? How does it move resources, coordinate responses?
That brings us to the second layer, the logistic layer. This is all about resource optimization and dynamic allocation.
Okay, this sounds like where it tackles the money problems and the slowness.
Precisely. The core insight here is replacing the current system of voluntary, often reactive funding with self-executing, incentive-aligned protocols.
Self-executing, like automated.
Yes, using technologies like tokenized impact bonds and distributed ledger technology, blockchain.
Okay, how does that work? What's the key function?
The main one is dynamic resource allocation. The system uses advanced forecasting, drawing on data from the other layers to predict crises like famines or natural disasters before they hit peak intensity.
Right.
It automatically triggers anticipatory financing. Funds are released proactively, not reactively. The source gives this really powerful example from simulations.
The Sahel famine one.
Yeah. Famine response time in the Sahel region was shown to potentially reduce from a typical 90 days down to just 15 days.
90 days to 15, that's a massive difference. That saves lives.
A huge difference. It fundamentally mitigates the humanitarian impact by getting resources there before the worst happens.
Incredible. So speed is one benefit. What else does this logistic layer do?
It also enables self-optimizing SDG financing. Think about climate resilience bonds issued on a blockchain.
Okay.
The yields, the returns on those bonds, could be directly linked to demonstrably reduced disaster costs in a region compared to predictions.
So if you invest in resilience and it works, saving money on disaster relief later, the bond pays out more.
Exactly. It fundamentally shifts the incentives. Instead of just paying for costly post-disaster relief, you're incentivizing proactive investment in resilience building. It aligns financial return with positive impact.
That's clever. Aligning money with doing good.
And there's another big efficiency gain: automated cross-agency coordination.
Tackling that silo problem between UN agencies.
Right. It uses smart contracts, self-executing agreements on the blockchain to automate loads of routine administrative processes between different agencies. Tasks, payments, reporting.
Getting rid of the paperwork bottleneck.
Essentially, yes. A UN Joint Inspection Unit report in 2024 estimated that these kinds of redundant processes currently eat up something like 35% of UN operational budgets.
35%, just on admin overlap.
That's the estimate. Smart contracts could streamline that hugely, driving efficiency and making sure money goes to programs, not paperwork. The source has a figure 1 that shows this whole circular flow of resources and accountability quite nicely.
Okay, so we have the wisdom layer, the logistics and action layer was the third one. The aesthetic layer, real-time crisis perception and multisensory monitoring.
This is the system's senses. It's sensory apparatus.
Giving it a way to feel or see what's happening on the planet in real time.
Exactly. The core insight here is providing comprehensive, granular, and importantly, unbiased global situational awareness continuously.
So what are its senses? What does it use to monitor?
It has several components. First, biospheric pulse monitoring. Think high-resolution satellite constellations like CubeSats.
Tiny satellites.
Yeah, lots of them, providing constant real-time data on things like deforestation, land use changes, biodiversity hotspots, ice melt, the planet's physical health.
How accurate is that?
Pilot programs mentioned, like one with the European Space Agency in 2025, reportedly achieved 92% accuracy in identifying these kinds of changes. Pretty high fidelity.
Oh, okay, so it monitors the environment. What about people? Conflicts, social issues.
That's where sociometric arrays come in. This uses advanced natural language processing, AI, to analyze publicly available data like social media streams, news reports.
Across different languages.
Over 120 languages, the source says. It looks for patterns, sentiment shifts, indicators of potential conflict, displacement, social unrest, basically trying to get an early warning on social crises.
Can it really predict conflict?
A 2024 validation study comparing its predictions against actual conflict data from the Uppsala Conflict Data Program apparently showed 78% accuracy in predicting an escalation of conflict within a 72-hour window.
72 hours warning.
Yeah.
That could be crucial for intervention.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the signs earlier.
Okay, satellites for the environment, data analysis for society, anything else?
Yes, and this part is really interesting. Participatory sensing networks. This involves citizens, direct.
Citizen scientists.
Exactly. Mobilizing potentially millions of people globally, the source estimates 8 million to monitor really hyper-local SDG indicators.
Like what?
Things like local water quality, air pollution levels, waste management issues, presence of certain species indicating biodiversity, things you can observe in your community.
How do they report that data reliably?
Through mobile apps that use cryptographic verification to ensure the data integrity. It's decentralized data collection.
So you get incredibly granular, real-time insights from the ground up.
You do.
Yeah.
And it also does something else important. It fosters widespread civic engagement. People become active participants in monitoring planetary health, not just passive observers. It empowers people.
Wow. Okay, frenetic wisdom, logistic action, aesthetic sensing. It's a comprehensive vision. But, I mean, this sounds incredibly ambitious, almost futuristic. How does such a massive transformative system actually get implemented? You can't just flip a switch.
No, absolutely not. And the source acknowledges that. It proposes a phased, what it calls a phylogenetic process.
Phylogenetic, like evolution.
Exactly, mimicking the gradual development of biological systems. The core insight of the roadmap is this commitment to gradual organic growth. Building it piece by piece, ensuring robustness, allowing for adaptation, and encouraging adoption, not a big bang rollout.
That sounds much more realistic.
Yeah.
So what are the phases?
It's broken down into 3 main phases. Phase 1 is the neurogenesis phase, running roughly from 2026 to 2028.
Neurogenesis, like the birth of neurons.
Right. This phase is all about establishing the core capacities, the foundational elements. It involves anchoring the initiative institutionally, maybe within the UNDP's innovation facility.
Okay. And testing it out.
Yes, through pilot deployments in really diverse settings. The source suggests places like Finland for its digital governance strengths, Costa Rica for environmental governance expertise, testing the aesthetic layer there, and maybe Rwanda for post-conflict peace-building applications and using those sociometric arrays.
So different countries testing different pieces based on their strengths.
Exactly. And also initializing those quantum phronesis units, the QPUs, in a few strategic global hubs, Geneva, Nairobi, Singapore, are mentioned, focusing them on specific high-impact problems first, proving the concept.
Okay, so phase one is about building the foundation, proving the core tech in specific contexts. What comes next?
Phase 2 is synaptogenesis, roughly 2029 to 2032.
Synaptogenesis, forming connections.
Ah.
Like the synapse in the brain.
Precisely. This phase is all about network expansion and integration, connecting the pieces together. A big part is integrating the blockchain technology to connect, say, over 50 UN agencies onto a common, scalable, secure network. Think something like Hedera Hashgraph is mentioned as an example. Enabling that transparent data sharing and coordination we talked about.
Breaking down the silos digitally.
Yes. And also formally onboarding many more of those non-state actors. The plan suggests bringing in over 200 indigenous communities and civil society organizations as authenticated sensory nodes, truly integrating their knowledge into the system, not just consulting them.
Giving them a formal role.
A formal, verifiable role. And financially, this phase involves starting that shift towards the new funding models. The goal mentioned is transitioning maybe 30% of the UN's regular budget towards those impact-linked financing instruments, like the resilience bonds, aligning the money with the goals.
Okay, building connections, bringing more actors in, shifting the finances. That leads to the final phase, metacognition. From 2033 onwards, this sounds like the really advanced stage.
It is. Metacognition means thinking about thinking, or self-awareness. This phase envisions the system becoming truly advanced, self-optimizing, and continuously evolving, like a mature cognitive system.
The core insight here is enabling genuine self-awareness and adaptation for global governance itself.
Exactly. What does that look like practically? Well, implementation of things like neural AI.
In neural AD, what's that?
Low-latency artificial consensus environments. Basically, AI-powered systems to facilitate high-stakes deliberations like in the UN Security Council, processing information, translating, summarizing arguments in near real time to speed up consensus building. Prototypes apparently showed very low latency, like under a second.
Wow. Speeding up diplomacy with AI. What else?
Development of autonomous mediation and dispute resolution AI modules. These would be tools to help resolve transboundary disputes over water, borders, resources. They wouldn't make decisions, but offer non-binding, evidence-based recommendations generated from all the system's data.
AI mediators, essentially.
Sophisticated advisory tools, yes. And maybe most radically, establishing mechanisms for continuous evolutionary governance.
Meaning the system can change its own rules.
In a controlled way, yes. Think algorithmic constitutional amendments or adaptive policy adjustments based on performance and new data. Building in the capacity for the governance system itself to evolve and dynamically align with changing planetary needs, rather than getting stuck in outdated structures.
A system that learns and adapts its own operating system, that's quite a leap.
It's definitely ambitious.
Okay, it's an incredible vision, but a system this powerful, this interconnected, this reliant on AI and quantum computing, it naturally brings massive risks to mind. What about misuse? What about bias? What about control?
Absolutely critical questions, and the source doesn't shy away from them. It details a pretty robust three-pillar risk mitigation framework.
So not an afterthought.
No, the core insight seems to be that security, ethics, and safeguards have to be woven into the very fabric of AMG from the start. They can't be bolted on later.
Okay, what's the first pillar?
Cognitive colonialism safeguards. This directly addresses the risk of this powerful system imposing dominant, likely Western, ways of thinking or exploiting data from vulnerable communities.
How does it guard against that?
Several ways. Implementing decentralized data sovereignty protocols, meaning communities own and control their data, requiring explicit cryptographic consent for its use.
So communities hold the keys to their own data.
Exactly. Also, establishing epistemic equity councils. These would be composed of diverse representatives, indigenous groups, marginalized communities, people from the global south, and crucially, they'd have veto power over decisions deemed culturally insensitive or epistemically biased.
Real power to object.
Real power. And finally, regular, transparent, algorithmic bias auditing conducted by independent, globally diverse oversight committees, making sure the AI isn't perpetuating harmful biases. Strong representation from the global south is key here, too.
Okay, so trying to build in fairness and prevent bias from the outset, what about the system's own stability? What if it goes wrong or gets locked into bad predictions?
That falls under the second pillar. Systemic integrity measures, protecting the system itself.
Oh.
Things like periodic quantum noise injection, deliberately introducing a tiny bit of randomness into the QPU simulations
Why would you do that?
to prevent what's called prediction lock-in, where the system becomes too confident in its own forecasts and stops adapting. The noise keeps it flexible, encourages exploration of alternatives.
Interesting, like shaking things up a bit.
Exactly. Also, biannual chaos engineering exercises. These would simulate multiple simultaneous global crises, pandemic, financial crash, major conflict, to really stress test the system's resilience and see how it performs under extreme pressure. Find the weak points before a real mega crisis hits.
Pushing it to its limits intentionally.
Yes. And maybe most importantly, constitutional kill switches and human oversight mechanisms.
Ah, the off switch.
A carefully controlled one. It would require a supermajority consensus from major human bodies like the UN Security Council and the General Assembly to override the system's automated functions or shut down parts of it if necessary.
So, ultimate control remains with humans.
That's the principle, ensuring humans are always in the loop for the biggest decision.
Okay, that's reassuring. Safeguards against bias, checks on the system's integrity, human oversight. What's the third pillar?
The third is ethical governance protocols. This is about ensuring the system operates ethically on an ongoing basis. The core insight is dynamic ethical alignment, making sure it doesn't just start ethical, but stays ethical.
How do you ensure that ethics evolve?
Well, one interesting idea is establishing youth consciousness committees. These would have a majority of members aged, say, 18-25,
Why youth?
to provide ethical guidance specifically on the use of AI mediation, new technologies, basically bringing in the perspectives and values of the generations who will inherit the future shaped by these systems, ensuring intergenerational equity in the ethics.
That's a fascinating idea. What else?
Incorporating harmonic resonance protocols. These are less technical, more like conceptual frameworks and digital ethical guidelines designed to prevent institutional drift, keeping the system aligned with core principles like those in the UN Charter,
Like a guiding philosophy embedded in the code.
or at least constantly checked against it. And finally, a continuous creation principle. This involves things like daily or weekly system reboots and algorithmic self-auditing processes.
Rebooting, like a computer.
Sort of, but more about ensuring the system constantly refreshes its ethical parameters, learns from new moral insights, and adapts its ethical compass over time. It's not static.
An evolving ethical framework. Okay, these safeguards sound comprehensive, though obviously complex to implement.
Extremely complex, but necessary if you're building something this powerful.
Assuming this could be built and safeguarded, it sounds like it promises some truly fundamental transformations in how we govern our planet. The source talks about 4 major paradigm shifts.
Yes, 4 critical shifts in global governance theory and practice that AMG aims to bring about. Each one is a potential game changer.
Okay, let's break them down. What's the first one?
Shift 1. From representation to embodiment. Ecosystem governance.
Representation to embodiment. What does that mean?
The core insight is moving radically away from the old state-centric model where only nations have real standing to formally integrating non-state actors, NGOs, indigenous groups, cities, maybe even corporations as legitimate neural nodes within the governance system.
So not just observers, but actual parts of the system.
Exactly. The proposal includes things like weighted influence tokens for participating in governance decisions.
Tokens for voting power. How would that be allocated?
The source suggests a mix, maybe 50% based on population represented, 30% on SDG performance, how well they're contributing to the goals, and 20% on financial contribution.
Interesting weighting. And non-state actors.
Critically, civil society and indigenous groups would collectively hold significant voting power. The source suggests around 30% allocated, perhaps using zero-knowledge proofs to verify their constituencies without revealing sensitive data.
30% for civil society and indigenous groups. That would fundamentally change the power dynamics at the UN, tackling that legitimacy deficit head on.
That's the idea. True multi-stakeholder governance, not just consultation.
Okay, huge shift number one, inclusion. What's number two?
Shift 2. From reactive to anticipatory intervention, preventative governance.
We touched on this, moving from cleanup to prevention.
Exactly. Current global governance mostly responds after a crisis hits. AMG, with its predictive modeling from the QPU and real-time data from the aesthetic layer, enables a focus on causal disruption.
Acting on the root causes before they lead to disaster.
Precisely. The source gives some powerful potential examples. Early health crisis detection using real-time monitoring and prediction could potentially save an estimated 70 million lives annually just by allowing for rapid containment of outbreaks.
70 million lives. Just from faster detection and response.
That's the potential scale. Similarly, that simulation mentioned earlier in the DRC.
The peacekeeping one.
Yes. Using predictive algorithms apparently showed how pre-positioning peacekeepers based on forecasted hotspots and using targeted diplomatic interventions could have prevented an estimated 12,000 casualties in that specific scenario.
Acting before the violence erupts. It's a completely different way of thinking about security and aid.
A fundamental shift to preventative governance.
Okay, inclusion, prevention was paradigm shift number 3.
Shift 3. From reductionist to nexus approaches. Systems harmonization.
Reductionist to nexus, meaning looking at the connections between problems.
Exactly. The current SDG framework, while great for listing goals, often leads to siloed implementation. Climate action over here, poverty eradication over there, clean water somewhere else.
Without fully accounting for how they all affect each other.
Right. AMG is designed to foster systems harmonization by constantly modeling the intricate interdependencies between all these global challenges. How does action on climate affect food security? How does educating girls impact economic growth and health outcomes?
Seeing the whole system.
And acting on those connections. A 2024 World Bank analysis is cited, suggesting that reallocating resources based on this kind of nexus modeling, understanding the links between, say, climate, water, and cities, could accelerate overall climate action by as much as 40%.
40% faster,
Yeah.
just by coordinating better based on system understanding.
That's the potential leverage. The source also mentions ideas like fractalized impact bonds, financial instruments designed to fund integrated solutions that tackle multiple SDGs at once. They estimate this could mobilize an additional $2.3 trillion annually in private capital.
Wow, unlocking private money by showing the interconnected benefits.
It's about treating problems as interconnected systems, not isolated issues.
Okay, that makes sense. Inclusion, prevention, systems thinking.
Yeah.
What's the fourth and final shift?
Number 4. From opaque to transparent operations, immutable accountability.
Tackling the trust issue.
Directly. As we mentioned, that UN survey in 2025 found huge public distrust, over 70%, largely due to perceived opacity and lack of accountability in multilateral institutions.
People feel they can't see what's going on, who's responsible.
Exactly. AMG aims to tackle this head-on using distributed ledger technology, blockchain.
How does blockchain help?
It creates immutable accountability because every transaction, every decision logged, every resource flow tracked, every impact measurement recorded on a distributed ledger is essentially public, permanent, and verifiable by anyone. You can't easily hide things or fudge the numbers.
That's so radical transparency.
Radical, verifiable transparency. Think about the potential for public scrutiny, for academic analysis, for holding institutions genuinely accountable for their performance and use of funds. It could revolutionize institutional legitimacy by building trust through openness.
Immutable accountability. That's a powerful phrase.
It really is. It implies a level of transparency far beyond what we have now.
What a vision. It's clear the Anima Mundi governance framework isn't just tinkering. It truly aims to transform the UN, or whatever global body implements it, from a sort of diplomatic talking shop into what the source calls an emergent planetary cognitive infrastructure.
It's a profound shift in conception, not just fixing problems within the old model, but reimagining the very nature of global cooperation and governance for a planetary age.
And the source really emphasizes the need for this, doesn't it?
It really does. It highlights both the ethical and the pragmatic imperatives. The current path, escalating climate disruption, persistent poverty, multiplying conflicts, it's just not sustainable. The status quo is failing.
And the cost of not changing is huge.
Staggering. measured in preventable deaths, irreversible damage to ecosystems, and just immense human suffering. But then it makes this really striking financial
The
comparison.
cost of AMG versus military spending.
Exactly. The estimated cost for Phase 1 implementation, getting the core systems up and running, is around $158 million. That sounds like a lot, but it's only about 0.2% of the UN's regular budget. And here's the kicker. $158 million is less than what the world currently spends on its militaries in just 3 hours.
3 hours of military spending could fund the start of this entire global nervous system.
According to the SIPERI data cited for 2024, yes. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? It raises that crucial question. If we can collectively afford to spend trillions on preparing for conflict, why can't we invest a fraction of that in building systems for collective planetary well-being and a truly sustainable future?
It's a powerful, maybe uncomfortable question to end on. This idea that the Anima Mundi, the world soul, awaits its awakening. And maybe humanity needs to become the conscious instrument to make that happen.
A profound responsibility.
It leaves you thinking. As you reflect on this ambitious, maybe unsettling, but undeniably compelling proposal, consider your own role. What does it mean for you, for us, if the planet truly develops a nervous system? What new possibilities and what new responsibilities might emerge? Something to ponder.